When people try the product, they don't like it. They love it. The way they describe it, the way it's changed their life, it sounds kind of crazy, but those people then become such advocates. They're telling their friends, their family, and then those people also love it, and you can see then how it kind of grows. You want to know why SURI has grown so quickly? Go and read those reviews.
They're the co-founders of SURI,
who turned an everyday habit
into over a $40 million brand.
From 5,000 pre-orders
to 10,000 glowing reviews.
Here's how they built the world's most loved electric toothbrush.
We actually had this pretty big disaster that felt existential in our very first week of shipping. We had a call from our 3PL one day saying, oh, we haven't actually shipped any of the products. There's been a problem with the labeling. And it just felt in that moment, the world was falling around us.
Gone are the days when you can just drive sales and lose lots of money. Nobody wants to support those businesses anymore. Today, it's much more about how do we make sustainable businesses.
Hear the stories, learn the proven methods, and accelerate your growth and future through entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Foundr Podcast with Nathan Chan.
All right, well, let's start from the beginning. What sparked this idea for SURI?
Well, to start and explain that, actually, it's probably worth explaining where we first met. So it's a really funny, bizarre story, but we were both at this thing called the Cannes Lions Festival, which is like the Oscars of the advertising industry. And I just, by total luck, had a conversation with the chief marketing officer of Unilever, who told me he was hosting a party off the coast of Cannes. And someone had dropped out, would I like to come along? And so I said, yes, of course. And then he said, well, get down to Pier 2 at 1:30 p.m. There's going to be a rib that's taking you across the island. Say my name and you can come. And I jumped onto that boat. And then to my left was Sir Martin Sorrell, the founder of the world's largest advertising agency group, WPP. And sat beside him was this guy. And at the time, I had my own agency and I really would love to sell it to WPP. So we got chatting at the island and it turned out that we both had started our careers at Procter & Gamble. Me in sales and marketing, Gyve in marketing and finance at Gillette. And, we were just chatting generally about business. And Gyve said to me, like, hey, Mark, do you ever think about like all the waste that was created by, the brands that we worked on mass scale, like all the plastic, all the excessive packaging. And don't you think that, consumer experience could actually be really improved with the product? A bit like the way that Apple have improved, the way they do things. And that was the spark of the idea.
Yeah, completely. That was actually 8 years ago. So it took us some time to come to market. We spent a lot of time doing consumer research. And then finally, 3 years ago, we jumped into it.
Yeah. And so you guys came up with the idea 8 years ago, started thinking about it, but you launched 3-4 years ago.
So what happened was in between, I sold my business. Gyve worked, parachuted into some e-commerce companies on behalf of a VC. And then it was actually, then we started doing research and we found out that every year over 4 billion toothbrushes are thrown away and end up in landfill and ocean. Nathan, probably almost every brush you've ever used since you were a child still exists somewhere, which is absolutely crazy when you think of like all the waste across all the people who brush their teeth. So we thought, well, let's dig into it further. And we researched with thousands of people and found out that, well, actually, here's a good question. Like, do you use an electric toothbrush?
Yes.
And you've been using it for a while, right? 10 years?
Yeah, long time, as I said.
Right? And how often do you use the Bluetooth function when you do you connect to your phone?
No, never.
No, never, right? Do you ever get that horrible gunk on the bottom?
Yes.
That crusty,
yes.
Yet absolutely foul. Many people tell us they don't take it when they go traveling because they're bulky, they're charged out.
Yep.
You have this like charger that only works on your toothbrush. And so not only are they not sustainable, but there's all these features that, people don't enjoy. And so we thought, lots of people brush their teeth with a product that's unsustainable and an experience they don't enjoy. What if we can make a product that's both more sustainable and more enjoyable to use? And that was the foundation of the idea for SURI, which is short for Sustainable Rituals.
Yeah, love it. So talk me through, guys, like why did you guys think you'd be a great pair to start a business together? Like, I don't do many interviews in a group, but I'd love to hear from a more personal side. Like, what was the spark? What was kind of like, let's do this thing together?
So we started, the idea came up 8 years ago, and then we put, I think sometimes things get in the way when you want to launch things, and it took a while. It took a lot of research. It took a lot of, I just needed to be pushed into it, right? And took one of actually Foundr's courses I was saying earlier 6 years ago. And so I had a lot of motivation, but the time was never really right. And then came COVID, and I had started working on a deck, resurfacing the idea, trying to get some designs done. And I bumped into Mark in the park because obviously we were in lockdown and we couldn't go around. And I was desperate to find somebody to join me at the time. And I remember playing really hard to get, saying, hey, Mark, we had this idea. Do you want to bring it to life? And I was like, I probably don't need somebody to help me, but it'd be really great if you could join. And I played it really hard to get, and I was like, you know what? He's probably not going to join. Next day, he calls me up. He's like, I'm 100% in. When are we doing this? Like, I'm not working right now. This is the perfect time. And for the next sort of whatever, I'd say half a year, we were on Zoom 24/7. We talked to each other more than we talked to our wives. Our Zoom cameras were pretty much portals in our house, where we were just walking into a room talking. We'd walk out, get lunch, and it was intense. I mean, we overlooked whether we were the right partnership for sure. And we're happy to share some stories around it. We're very different people, and I think that is our magic today, that we made that work. But definitely, when you're on camera 12 hours a day talking to somebody remotely, it's not easy in the beginning, for sure.
And it was actually, it's been like a strength ultimately, because we are so different. Gyve's very, very detailed. I'm much more big picture. We have different speciality backgrounds, but just personality wise, we're so different. And being totally honest, during those hours, we would say things to each other and you'd be like, that kind of annoyed me the way he said that. And then I'd probably be a little bit prickly and be like, oh, well, you said this and I'm going to act like that. And so quite early on, we were like,
It accentuates when you're on Zoom, right? I mean, obviously, founders, they say number 3 reason companies fall apart is founders fall apart, right? Maybe it's number 2. And when you're on Zoom, it accentuates. So I think we were fortunate to be in that period that we learned how to deal with it a lot quicker, rather than waiting maybe 2 years to be like, oh, we don't get along on these areas. And we had this thing, we used to call it Friday complaining sessions or bitching sessions, if I could say that. And that's what we started with. And that was our sort of therapy session, where it started out with Friday, 10 o'clock one day, and Mark's like, can we just chat about what's not working between us? And I was like, what do you mean? Everything's working. Yeah. Of course, being like, I had a list of things.
I remember there must be things that I do that annoy you, and Gyve's like, no, everything's all good. Everything's all good. I was like, well, I'll go first then. Because my mother was a therapist, was a marriage counselor for a long time, and so I just thought, you know what, let's just get this stuff out into the open. And it was amazing because I really learned quickly. I would say to Gyve, hey, you said this the other day, and it really annoyed me and he was like, oh no, that's not what I meant. And I was like, what? But I'd attached this meaning to this thing that Gyve had said, and then that annoyed me. And then he was like, oh no, I was actually just worried about this, and that was like, oh wow, okay. And then after I shared a few of mine, Gyve was like, actually, now that I come to think about it, and then sure enough, we went through it. But it really meant that we cleared the air super quickly.
And I think at the end of the day, we like most co-founders want the same goals: scale, be profitable, get great success, potentially a liquidation event. But the reality is, we all come from very different backgrounds. Even if we're from the same country, which we're not, we've lived in multiple places around the world. We have different, styles of working. Our parents are different. The cultures that we were raised in. And so when you really take a step back, you realize people think ultimately differently, and they come to they have similar desires and goals, but the way they work is different. And if you can learn to respect that, and so to say I get you meant that and you want this, but I'm looking at it this way, should we consider this? Then you can sort of find a way to slot in your differences to build the sort of superpower that you want to achieve. And I think so many times people overlook that sort of soft skill of making things work, and really it's a trust element. I can come to Mark and be like, that was terrible. I hated the way that meeting ran, and I think we should do it differently. And I really didn't like it when you said that in the meeting. What do you think I didn't do well? How can we do this better?
Yeah, and I think I can see you guys have that common sense of trust and that common respect. And I think that's that's how speed is built, on trust, right? Like you've got to have that trust. So talk me through, guys, like you had this idea 8 years ago, you came together, eventually launched this product. How much can you share how much it cost, initial MOQ, like how did you bring it to life? Because a lot of people, I read it in the YouTube comments all the time. Like, I wish Nathan would go deeper on how they actually built the product, how they actually created it, how did they manufacture it, what was MOQ, how much did it cost? Like, talk me through those intricate details.
So I think a few things. One, scaling a brand with lots of stock, which is, expensive, costs money. And it's fair to say, like, we didn't have like a huge amount of money to start with. So even like with the concept, we took it to angel investors and said, hey, look, we've got this great idea. We've got this relevant background and we've got this vision for the future. We need to raise some capital. And so we did a pre-seed investment round and raised £800,000. And so, that gave us enough money to then be like, okay, we'll place our orders with the factories. We went to 24 different factories.
Yeah.
And they were all like, that can't be done. Like what you're saying, the materials, that's not possible. Now, fortunately, I'm sat beside one of the most stubborn, determined people I've ever met, because like after 20 factories, I was like, maybe this isn't possible. Like, should we just compromise in certain areas? But Gyve was like determined. You'd done the research and just kept going. So I think that was such a like, when I look back, that was one of the most crucial things, that there was just this like absolute determination that we could do things very, very differently than they'd been done before.
Yeah, and I would just add that to any entrepreneur out there trying to do something different, the goal is very much to do something that is meaningfully differentiated. And I'll talk a bit about that. But the reality is, when you talk to a factory, that's exactly the opposite of what they want to do. They want to make what they've already made, skin differently. And for them, innovation is efficiency. I can make these models, I can slightly adjust them, and then I can, continue to make more margin because I've made them for a while, and that's great. But the market doesn't want that. People want to see things that are meaningfully differentiated. And I would just sort of dig into, and you need to have a strong margin. That's at least I would say above 70%, and that's what we were targeting. And it's a negotiation. And so I would say, once you've found the partner that is really willing to work with you, you have to be willing to accept to negotiate. I'm not very good at negotiation. Mark is epic at it. And I would say it takes you out of your comfort zone, but it in the beginning, when you start, you have the worst terms on everything, whether it's with your factory or Shopify or any site. They're just giving you the worst terms. And it's kind of counterintuitive. You'd think an early stage company would get better terms because they need support. But the reality is, until you have scale, everybody gives you the worst sort of like payment terms, the worst sort of variable costs. And so, it's important to start with something that you can work with, but then after 3 months, negotiating even better prices. After 6 months, being like, can we get a better payment fee on Shopify? Sorry, Shopify, but like anything, right? And I think that's important, because there are clients that are at much higher volumes that are getting significantly better deals than you. And for your survival, that is critical.
Well, one thing I would add though, because, for your audience, like just so a couple of people I really admire. I don't know if you are familiar with True Classic. But they've scaled, to hundreds of millions of dollars bootstrapped. And Ryan, who was a former professional poker player, from the very beginning, sat in front of some of the biggest factories and persuaded them to give him, I think, I'm not exactly sure, but I think like 90 or 180-day payment terms, which is what enabled him to do it from the start. And so, although Gyve's absolutely right, like, no one wants to do that at first, it's definitely possible. And some of the best entrepreneurs I've met have thought really upfront about the importance of, payment terms, negotiation, ensuring that you have like breaks, like, so that, when you hit this volume, the price is going to come down, and you do that all up front. I really think that's a bit of overlooked advice that I would definitely sort of rethink about if I was to set up other future e-commerce companies.
Yeah, I just add on the differentiation, because differentiation is, it's vital for success, because everybody talks about MVPs. The reality is, anybody can find a product in Alibaba, reskin it, and get some good branding work done for maybe a few £1,000, maybe not epic branding work, but some branding work, and they can start to sell it. So the market has become so much more competitive in almost every category today. And so really, you need to find out how can you meaningfully differentiate your product and find a way that is desirable. And so we did 5,000 customer interviews. We didn't have a lot of money in the beginning, and we used SurveyMonkey. You can get like 200 responses for 50 quid quite fast. And we asked, questions about what people wanted. Everything around like, I hate the fact that my brush doesn't last more than 7 days on a charge. Well, ours lasts 40 days. I hate that it has a gunk buildup. We have a stainless steel plate under our brush. That makes it practical. It's not a fake background. That stainless steel plate is just easy to wipe off, so you don't have like gunk that builds up. These are little pain points that larger brands were just completely ignoring. And one thing that they were focusing on was apps that we found out nobody was using. And so we said, how can we just make the experience better? How can we deliver an exceptional performance? Because it's kind of table stakes in the category. And then as a foundation, also, how do we push the boundaries in terms of sustainability? We have plant-based heads. We recycle them for free. We have a brush that has an aluminum body that is more durable than others. So yeah.
And the culmination of like, it's kind of business 101. You read about this stuff, but it's so easy to overlook. It's like listening to your customer, like that 40-day battery life is more important. The travel case, the fact that it's slim, it's beautiful, it's more sustainable. Like these were things that customers truly wanted. And just by listening to them and developing the product for exactly that's why we're now the most highly rated electric toothbrush in the world. With a 4.8 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot, with over 10,000 reviews. It's really based on listening to customers and delivering what they want, which I think is so applicable to any great brand with longevity.
Hey Foundr fam, I want to take a quick break from the conversation to talk to you about something super exciting. We're officially partnered with Omnisend, the email marketing and SMS platform built specifically for e-commerce founders. We've been recommending Omnisend to Foundr students for a while now because it just works. Whether you're launching your first store or you're scaling to 7 figures, it really helps you automate your marketing and get real results. Did you know on average, Omnisend customers make $68 for every $1 they spend, which is an insanely good return on investment. And because you're part of the Foundr community, you get 50% off your first 3 months with the code FOUNDR50. Just head to omnisend.com/Foundr without the E to get started. All right, now let's jump back into the show. Yeah, you mentioned something there interesting to me around the validation piece, right? You did 5,000 customer interview surveys, whatnot. Like, how did you do that? And how much did it cost? And like, talk me through that, because that's interesting, right? Like, not many people would do that.
So we set them up on SurveyMonkey. We combined them with qualitative reviews. You got to look at the setting. Also, it was COVID, so it's very hard to do qualitative reviews. So it's almost like we had to do it in a park or walking and talking to people, and that would. We tried to stay away from friends and family, which is the first starting point of most customer surveys, because they're always going to bias towards it's a great idea. And so random people, we chose. You can easily choose the sort of segment of how much money they make, disposable income, where they're based, and then we started with simple concept slides. So you can create a little concept slide which shows what your like a rough sketch of your product. The less pretty the better, because then they're not judging it on the design. Say what are the key benefits, and then start out with like, what product do you use, how often do you use it, what do you think of the concept slide, what would you pay for this. In pricing, there's the waste sort of test, which is sort of 4 things you want to ask, which is, at what point do you think this product would be too expensive, you never consider it? At what point do you think this product would be too cheap, you think it's badly made? And that gives you sort of 2 outliers of like, cool, these are the boundaries I should stay away from. And then at what point do you think this product is not too expensive, but I need some time to think about it because it's a meaningful amount that I'm paying for. And then the next one is, at what point do you think this would be a good bargain? And so you get these 4 curves that get you a really good idea of like, cool, this is the price area I can play in for this concept without even thinking about design and features yet, or visual features.
And to the exact, software, there's multiple ones. We use SurveyMonkey predominantly, and then you just pay a set amount per number of customers, and then we scale that up depending whether we're looking in like the US market, UK market, different ages, etc. But using exactly like
the second thing, and I don't recommend this for everybody, we came from Procter & Gamble, so for us share data was really important. We wanted to know what was the retail share. So we spent quite a lot of money on that. I mean, I say a lot, at the time I think we spent £5,000 on getting share in major developed markets. And we saw this trend that kind of would scare most people, which is that two brands dominate in almost every market. They have a 75% share, those two brands, Oral-B and Philips. And so it was a bit US, UK, Australia, all around the world. And so we thought, well, maybe people don't want a new brand if they're really happy with these two brands. And so that's when we, in the qualitative interviews, we really started digging into it. And we found this really common thread that surprised us, which is we'd ask people, what do you brush with? I used electric brush. Okay, how much did you pay for it? I paid 100 quid for it. All right, how long ago? Several years ago. How often do you use it? Every day, twice a day, except when I travel. What's the name of the brand? It's the one that does this, or it does this. And here we were thinking, you spent quite a lot of money on this product, you use it twice a day, and you can't tell us the name of the brand. That tells us that the loyalty is really through sort of like it was available on shelf rather than I love this brand. Most brands that you use every day that you love, you can name. And so for us, that told us, now that wasn't everybody, but that was a common thread we saw in a meaningful amount of people that were like, wow, that means that people don't love these products. They're just there and they're using them. Maybe they're recommended by their dentist.
Yeah, that's a good pickup. And that's your product development shops coming through, right?
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. And so there we were like, cool, we really need to make something people love. The subtleties that they go, wow, why didn't anybody else think of this? And also the sound, like, I'm going to try and see, like, they're really loud. Like we tested with our wives in the beginning, like, can we have a conversation or at least hear them talk to us? Like, I don't know if you can hear it. It's not very loud at all, so just focusing on some of the subtleties and features like that.
All right, take me back. How long did it take, obviously, when you went to Angels, you spoke to many different factories, you obviously did the whole China tour. From placing that first MOQ to launch, how long did that take?
Too long.
Well, no, from placing the order, I think it was about 9 months. There were various delays. We wanted to launch sooner, but there was delays and delays and delays. But what was amazing is the MOQ was 5,000 units, and within we totally sold out before we even shipped the first product. So we'd had a pre-sale, which it was kind of great. But then when we shipped the first product, we went back in
to pre-sale so for like 2 months,
and then we sold out again. And it was an exciting time, but we actually had this pretty big disaster that felt existential in our very first week of shipping. So it was just one of those like early terrible moments where you just think like we're over, it's done. And the reason was people had been waiting to ship or have their products received. They'd pre-bought it, and a bunch of those customers were in the US. We'd sent an email to everyone saying, hey, we've sent out the product. But then 2 weeks later, we had a call from our 3PL one day saying like, oh, we haven't actually shipped any of the products to the customers in the US. There's been a problem with the labeling. And it just felt in that moment, the world was crushed, like falling around us. I remember distinctly, it was just the two of us plus.
I think it was like 3,000 orders that we had already been, there's a bit of context. We've been, as most products, we had said we were going to launch 4 months before, and we were delayed every month. People were telling us they were going to get refunds. And I think we were about 3 people at the time, and we were all on our customer service software, Gorgeous, constantly writing back to customers being like, we just wanted to let you know there's going to be another month delay. Sorry about this. And we just thought everybody would go for refunds. And instead, because we were writing them all personally, we got emails back being like, no problem. We're, thank you so much for writing me personally and taking the time to explain this to me. Look forward to getting it. And I think then we always knew that customer experience was important. I think that was a sort of foundational moment where we're like, look, if we treat our customers well and we really care about them and treat them like people, and we're constantly reaching out to them and talking to them, that is something that will differentiate our business from our competitors, which they're not doing today. So that was a moment where, I mean, it was painful in the sense that we were answering emails 24/7, but it got us over the line, and it's become a foundational sort of value for us.
Yeah, and look, that's what you have to do, like in, doing things that don't scale, right? That's grassroots, early days, getting close to the customer. The closer you are to the customer, the better the products. So you kind of skipped over something that I think a lot of people's ears would perk around, is like you sold basically all your 5,000 units in the first day of launch, right? How did you do that? Like, talk us through, like, that's not easy, right? Like what did you guys do there? Talk us through what was some key decisions that you made to make the product, like besides creating an epic product, you left no stone unturned around recyclable heads, sonic power, UV cleaning, like all these cool things. The product was truly unique in its kind, but what did you do from a marketing perspective to sell out your product and just drive so much?
So one thing that I didn't mention on product validation that we did when we got past sort of the surveys and we got initial concepts, we started doing landing pages to see if people would sign up to emails. We used Meta predominantly. I had worked at a few startups before where I had seen how hard it was to scale with Meta, because Meta the CPAs can be quite high. So I knew a little bit on how to use Meta, and we basically did ads to landing pages to see which elements people liked more, particularly from a communication point of view, so that when it came time to launch, we knew that sustainability was really important, but it couldn't be the only feature we were driving in our ads. And so we had pre-launch ads. We thought really hard about going into Kickstarter, which a lot of people do for hardware. But we knew we wanted to move on really quickly. We'd take an angel investment and become an e-commerce store. So we did our pre-launch all on Shopify, and we built our site ready to go, and it was just a pre-launch page all there, which in hindsight made us not do two things, because you have to learn all about Kickstarter and build Kickstarter's page, and then you have to learn about Shopify, and it's just a bit of stubble work. So that worked out really well for us. Most of it, I really want to say this. There's a lot of tips around, at least at the time, there was so much around referral marketing, viral marketing, creating people, and I thought that it wasn't working when we started doing some of the sort of viral sharing and referrals. And instead, because of the incentives, we were getting the wrong customers. We were getting people who just wanted a discount and free products rather than actually really sharing. They'd found ways to game the system. And I spoke to a friend of mine who worked at Meta, and I said, and he didn't, but he did at a time working on brands that were scaling. And I said, listen, what are your sort of growth tactics when I don't have a lot of money? Like, how are we going to really scale this company? And he said, Gyve, you got to nail ads. He's like, it is, if it ads and influencers, I would add as well later on. But he's like, you it's one or the other. You need to nail a channel that scales and reaches a lot of people. And so we spent a lot of time really sort of finding the storytelling elements of our pre-sale ads that would really drive a pre-sale. And then obviously a healthy discount helps. So
I think there's another element which was really important, and I think we also follow, as well as Foundr, there's a guy, Nick Sharma, who does a lot of tips on D2C. And yeah, I'm sure I read in one of his emails about, trust and this element of like, you're launching a new brand. And so, if you think from a consumer's perspective, they're looking at spending money, and it's like, how can you reassure people? And so, we have a 100-day money back guarantee. So that was one element. But very early on, we had a big stroke of luck where we sent our product to some different journalists, and one of them who is, they write reviews of the best electric toothbrushes. So if you type best electric toothbrush into Google, they were the #1 search in the UK, and they said, this is the best toothbrush, like this is coming soon, and like
that helps.
It's going to be great. And so that we were able then to use that legitimacy and to borrow the trust from that brand, to show like, hey, look, this is a real thing, and to try and reassure people. And even I would say in the first year, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not I wasn't sure if this is, like going to be good. And so I think just building that trust with the consumer and sort of validating it through, real life reviews or people with authority who sort of also believe in the product and was really crucial.
Just to build on that, like early days, we obviously the ads were important, but I kind of went over this a little too fast. PR was really important to what Mark was saying. We were constantly reaching out to journalists, trying to get sort of free awareness. We applied to awards left, right, and center. I think one of the moments for us that was really validating was we won £250,000 from the Sunday Times for their Earth Fund, and that was just like in our pre-launch stage. They're like, "Here's 250,000 free advertising," which, I would say that really we were then able to put all these like full page spread prints in the Sunday Times, which had a highly affluent sort of readership. And so after that, I think 20% of our time was just applying to awards and trying to get journalists to write about us, or maybe even more in the beginning.
The great thing about it as well is that it's like very low cost. Do you know what I mean? Like it's time. It's time. But like, when you're at the start and you're being scrappy, it's like anything like that has like such a high reward ratio for investment.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting, the PR piece. Like, interview some founders and it's been so game changing for them, but then you hear, other founders don't really rely on those kind of traditional media channels. But that's a great insight. So I'm curious around what happened next. So you've built this incredible product, extreme demand. Like, this was only 3 years ago, right? Like 3 years ago, guys, as well, Facebook introduced something called iOS 14. So for a lot of us old school, been in the game a while, pay to play marketers, founders, whatnot, that was not the easiest time to navigate. So you guys have had tremendous growth. It sounds like you've still built a really large channel through paid media. Like, what happened next?
Well, just on iOS 14, it was definitely painful for us too, I would just add. And, we were spending money on Facebook, and the dashboard was saying we were making no sales, which we didn't have very much money, but we were getting sales. And I was like, I don't know these customers. So where are they coming from? We must be getting it through Facebook. So the tracking was totally off, but we were like, look, if we're spending money, we're making money, then let's just forget what the dashboard, which sounds ridiculous, but we were just looking at total numbers. I spent this, I made this, right? And so that worked out really well, not to look at the dashboards and the CPAs at that point in time, because the tracking just wasn't making sense. And it's gotten better now, but I'd still say with, AI audiences, ASC and PMAX on Google, but it's still not perfect to back in the day when you had really good tracking.
To your question, like what's driven the growth? And I think where we're really lucky is when people try the product, they don't like it. They love it. Like we have these 10,000 reviews, the 4.8 out of 5 rating, but I would ask anyone, if you're looking at setting up your own business and you want to know why SURI has grown so quickly, like go and read those reviews, because you have people writing the following things. Like, and you can see it really clearly. Like, I've never written a review before, but oh my goodness, I think I love my toothbrush. Like, I'm 50 years old and I've never enjoyed brushing my teeth. Now I look forward to it. I'm brushing my teeth 4 times a day because I enjoy it so much. And like, look, we love the brand, but like there are people who really love it, and the way they describe it and like the way it's changed their life is, it sounds kind of crazy, but like it truly is. Like,
I love brushing my teeth.
Have a look. And
holy crap, I've never said that before. Like these are real reviews.
And so as
we obviously have negative reviews too, like, oh, package didn't arrive, I dropped it and it broke, and
or some people, it's just not for them. But like now a really decent portion of our business comes from, and excuse the pun, word of mouth. And so, when we talk about like, what's helped drive it, so like, ads drive awareness to get some initial sales, but those people then become such advocates that they're telling their friends, their family, And then those people also love it, and you can see then how it kind of grows. And then you combine that with an enormous market. Everyone brushes their teeth, and you can see where a lot of that growth has come from.
I mean, and then just in terms of our journey, we started out really lean. We were 3 people, and then in the first year, I think we were 5 or 7. We did about, I guess, 2 million sales, and then we went on to do 10 million, and then 30 million. We're now 36 people. For us, it was really important to try and maintain profitability, because I think gone are the days when you can do this and just drive sales and lose lots of money. Nobody wants to nobody wants to support those businesses anymore, and valuations have gotten lower, so you can't go and raise tons of money. So, and it doesn't make sense probably also too, like that whole model, I think, was a model of maybe wasn't a proven success. There's a few winners and very many losers. And I think today it's much more about spreading it even, like how do we make sustainable businesses that are just healthy?
Our name is Sustainable Rituals, and we just did not like buy into this idea of just like raise lots of money, lose lots of money, and one day things will work out. It's like, to be sustainable, you need to be profitable, right? You can't be sustainable if you're not profitable. And so that's been a key focus from day one.
Yeah. Look, it's funny how fast the market changed, right? Like post that COVID piece, things really changed. Everyone thought it would last forever. I was guilty of it as well. And I think things really changed fast. And now that's what's definitely in vogue in the business world is, staying profitable, having a profitable business. It is harder though to, grow profit at the same time. But it sounds like you guys have been able to do that. You mentioned, where like, so it sounds, you're able to talk about, like you said, year 3 at 36, where do you think you guys were you forecasting for year 4?
a lot.
Ask us at the end of the year.
So we have some, I mean, we can't share too much now, but we have some really genuinely game-changing, exciting things. And it's not one, it's like 3 different, very significant innovations and new news that's coming. And that could be a real game changer, I think, for the size of the business.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So you guys also have a pretty strong retail push as well. You guys are in Amazon, Selfridges, Goop. Why not just stay D2C? Talk us through that strategy.
So yeah, sure. So we're customer obsessed, right? Like everything we do is for the customer. And the truth is, the customer, they love to shop on Amazon. Sometimes they're in Boots. Boots is in the UK that sells 35% of all electric toothbrushes that are sold in the UK are through Boots. And it's somewhere that people go, every week, every month, and has got like a great reputation for being, great health and wellness beauty retailer. We're super lucky that Gwyneth Paltrow's company Goop, picked us up, and they absolutely love the brush, and we became the top selling product there. Actually, on Amazon, we were very lucky to be invited to join their sustainability accelerator. So we were actually our office was in the European headquarters of Amazon for the first year. And so they incubated us and gave us a ton of support. It's pretty amazing. And I'm like on it. It's one of the proudest things right now that for the last, I think, 10 weeks, we've been the #1 best-selling sonic toothbrush on Amazon, which is about 40% of the market. So for us, like, we don't think of a company as a channel. There's a lot of brands before who are like, oh, we're a D2C brand. And it's like, no, like D2C is a channel. A brand is just a brand, and like how people want to shop and where people want to shop, we want to be available at the point at which they're making their decision. So that necessitates that, we have a D2C business, an Amazon business, but also a retail business.
And I would just add that for people starting businesses, early stage, we started D2C only. Retail, obviously, like they didn't take us. We wrote to them consistently, like, we don't know who you are, go away. Of course, Mark says I'm stubborn, but he's persistent also, and like he didn't take no for an answer. So he found but he's very charming at the same time. So whether it's texting, any way you could get in. So the good thing about that is D2C as a starting channel, we were able to grow awareness through Meta. And then when we got to a certain point, then we turned on Amazon, and then people shopped there because maybe it was more convenient for them. And then by that point, retail were like, when can we list? Let's talk again. And so when you have enough, and you don't want to go into retail without a certain level of awareness, because then they'll just sit on shelf and be like, I've never heard of that brand, I'm not going to buy it. But you can use very much so DTC media channels to drive awareness for your offline retail channels. And the other thing is, we also looked at retail from a marketing point of view. So we went into some specialty stores, or one very premium store, Erewhon in LA it's kind of probably the most premium retailer. They have about 11 stores in LA, most premium retailer that celebrities shop from consistently. We went into them early on, and that has been a great marketing awareness channel. People obviously buy a lot of products from there, but if they haven't, they'll be, they'll recognize us, it boosts awareness, and then maybe they'll buy it from somewhere else or there.
And we have these beautiful displays in Erewhon, and I don't think it's a coincidence that a few of the Kardashian family posted about us, because their local grocery store is the Erewhon in Calabasas. And so, we kind of started building a relationship that way. But I think there's a guy I follow on LinkedIn. I think, I can't remember who it is, but I think he's the CEO of Chubbies or something. But he just looks mathematically, like if you look at the number of people who are purchasing products and where they purchase, e-commerce, like in different categories, obviously, but in our category, the vast majority of people around the world buy their electric toothbrushes in retail, not online. And so if you sort of think to yourself, I'm just going to focus in this area, like by all means, you can build a great business, but you're going to miss, this like massive portion of consumers who want to buy it in a retail environment. So I think to think about like an omni-channel strategy is really just to think about a shopper strategy. Like what does a shopper do, and how do they want to purchase things?
Hey guys, I really hope you're feeling inspired from today's interview. Now, the truth is, all successful e-commerce founders started from zero, with a spark of an idea and a whole lot of determination. But let's be real, building or growing an e-commerce business is no walk in the park. And that's where Foundr Plus comes in, which I'm really excited to share with you. It's a culmination of a decade worth of work at Foundr. So if you're feeling stuck in your e-commerce business, you're lacking confidence to move forward, or you're worried about making costly mistakes or not knowing how to grow your business, Foundr Plus is here to support you on your journey. You get access to a customized learning pathway with proven frameworks from successful e-commerce founders for fast results, incredible programs, a supportive community, weekly live mentorship, exclusive savings on startup tools, and 24/7 real human support. Try Foundr Plus today for just $1 for 7 days so you can accelerate your business goals. Visit foundr.com/start $trial or click the link in the description to claim your trial. All right, now let's jump back in the show. Yeah, and I want to ask something really interesting about SURI that I recognize. Fast Company named you guys one of the most innovative brands in the world. How did you find out about that? What was that recognition? Like, why do you think that is?
We came second to Walmart. In fact, the ceremonies in New York.
Among equals, of course.
Yeah. So we're hoping to get the top spot next time. But no, like, again, this is so cheesy. I'm not a cool guy, right? So I'm not going to even pretend to be cool. Like we're huge Nathan Chan fans. We're huge Foundr fans, and we have been from before we set up SURI.
Yeah, I was a training or a course early on. I was saying that, and I was saying earlier that there's a lot of insights that I think helped us go after this product category.
But probably a lot of your listeners, we want to set up a business. We want to be successful. What would our dream be? And one of them as well is Fast Company, looking at the most innovative companies. I would scour that list and, be like, wow, imagine one day, really being in amongst these other companies. And so before we even set up the business, we wrote down a list of, wouldn't it be great if we could do this and that? And it's bizarre because, Fast Company most innovative list would definitely be one of them. Being on the Foundr podcast would have been one of them. And it's just amazing. Now that I look back on it, I wish I'd written other things
yeah, because they keep coming true, right?
Yeah, but they keep coming true. So I'm I probably should have gone a bit more ambitious. But another one just we got this week was there's this very famous list in the UK about the top 100 best companies to work for, in terms of culture and environment. And that was fun to listen. And we're on that list now, and it just it's amazing how even just like thinking about these things in advance, like this like visualization, this kind of like intent of like, this is where we want to go, writing it down, how these things are coming true, you know, like even the fact that we're having this conversation right now, at some level we discussed like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's really impressive, right? Like the speed in which you guys are growing the business. And I think a lot of it comes down to like the product, the execution, the brand. You've done such a fantastic job. And I think you've spent the time, right? Like not many people go through 5,000 customer interviews or, you know, customer data points, right? And there is a common thread that I see amongst super successful founders that we interview. They spend the time getting the product right and really nailing the product. And then they nail the branding and the packaging and then obviously the marketing as well. But the marketing becomes so much easier if you've got product market fit.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's, I think, what a lot of founders tend to skip over. They've got the idea, they want to launch it, and they don't spend enough time on really thinking about the problem that they're solving and how to really differentiate in the marketplace. And it's tough. You know, that's why Foundr exists, right? Like we connect you with some of the greatest entrepreneurs of our generation, either through, you know, a free content podcast or our education platforms and all sorts of things. But like, it's not easy, right?
No. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, we've been fortunate to talk about the good moments and our wish list coming through, but there are definitely lows. And I would just add, and, you know, a lot of work, you know, a lot of sacrifices made. We both have young kids, and Mark said he's not cool, but we have no personal life. Like we don't get, I mean, we get to go out to the occasional business event, I think, but like friends wise, like, I'm terrible on WhatsApp, like terrible getting back to people, terrible on email. But like I would say, like we really enjoy it, right? So these are trade-offs that we made that we massively enjoy. But it's hard. Hardware's hard. There's so many things I wish I could tell myself when we were starting out. Like launching a product that is physical is very hard compared to well, everything's hard. But you know, you have the capital, you have products, you constantly have to evolve the product and constantly make it better behind the scenes and not tell people about it because things need to change and you don't get it right in the first batch or the second or the third. So that is definitely something that I wish I knew when I started. Maybe better I didn't know, right? Because you're just going to be continually failing and learning at the same time.
The thing you said though, Nathan, is like I think it's been probably my biggest lesson. I had a business before this, and it felt every single day like I was pushing a rock up a hill. I fought for every single pound of profit in that business. You know, it was just like at no point did it get easier. Whereas this time, because we did that upfront research and because it was really based on genuine consumer insights with a very large category, that product market fit just totally changes the game, as you said, and getting that product right, that customer experience right, is so fundamental. And I think often I meet other entrepreneurs and I think, wow, you are such a better business person than I am. But they might be working with an undifferentiated product or in a category that really has no growth or requires a lot of like expensive education. And it's just so much harder than if you find, you know, a large problem and solve it with a great solution and then bring that to market.
Yeah, I agree. Talk to me around kind of like, what are some other mindset shifts or things that you think founders need to know that is not talked about enough when it comes to starting or even just scaling an e-com brand at the speed in which you guys are growing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like one thing for me is don't be a perfectionist in the beginning. Like we were so nervous about our branding in the beginning. You know, now we're very happy with it, but it wasn't perfect. And if you go onto our Instagram, we've left all of those posts early on, so you can really see how we've evolved. But we were, you know, in the beginning, you really want to create, it's your baby. You want to create something perfect. And sometimes you really you waste stress on perfection, on certain elements. now we're saying that the product needs to be perfect, right? But what I'm saying is, like, as a founder, you're constantly going the 110%, and sometimes you need to accept that things will evolve over time. And so you're going to give it your best effort now, but you've got to be continually willing to evolve it. And I think branding is a good example of that. So we were constantly evolving our branding in the beginning, because sometimes you might need to hire the right branding person and you can't at the start, so you have to wait until you can evolve things. So accepting imperfection on branding, I would say, is something that I would encourage, that not everything is going to be perfect. Get it right. But I think the key point there is, don't just accept it. Accept that you're going to continually improve it. And that's the goal. Like, don't say, well, it's not perfect, but it's good enough. Be like, tomorrow I'm going to make it better, next week even better, but I'm just going to do what I can do and keep improving.
From my side as well, like, I think there's like some solid foundational truths, which if you follow as like an early stage founder, like, it's just going to set you in great step. There's a guy called Drew Sanoki, who, again, on LinkedIn, he's turned around these massive e-commerce companies, and now he runs, I think, Postpilot. But like, the following is true in e-commerce. Like, try and have as high a gross margin as possible. If you can start your brand and it's got, 70s, 80s, high gross margin, like, that's going to be fundamentally useful. 2, if you have a small and or light product, that's really good from like a shipping, posting, packaging, storage. Like, it is just such a fundamental truth. And like, the best example I can think of this is, there's a brand in the UK called Lounge, and I've read the interview as the husband-wife partnership. I think they were boyfriend-girlfriend at the time. And they took that same advice and they were like, what can we do? And they made women's underwear, right? So you think about that stuff. It's so, like, the stuff they produce is very small, super light, and it's unbelievable margins. You know what I mean? It's like this bit of fabric this size, but huge margins. And they have scaled this company profitably into the hundreds of millions. And, again, it's sort of, for an e-commerce founder, if you can find something that's like small, light, durable, doesn't go out of date, has great margins, and is based on like a big, there's a big addressable market, and you've got a differentiated product. I think if you get those fundamentals right from the beginning, you make your whole life easier in the long run.
The one other sort of like controversial thing that I really want to share is that early on, when we were starting, as a founder in general, you're constantly seeking advice. Like, you're constantly looking to people who've done it. You're constantly looking to your investors. You're seeking advice. What do you guys think we should do? And you're ingesting that. And sometimes you're taking it personally if they're not happy with something. And I would say one of the best, I asked an early stage investor who passed on us, I said, what do you think of the product? What do you think of the concept? Like, would you invest? And he was like, what do you mean, what do I think of the concept? I was like, what do you think of the concept? And he was like, you don't want my opinion. I'm just an investor. What you want is your consumer's opinion. And if your consumer likes it, they'll reward you with a share of wallet. But like, me telling you what I think, like, I'm a millionaire. Like, I'm probably not your customer. Like, ask your customers, don't ask me what they think. And I was like, you're totally right. And I was at a stage when I had a lot of people sharing suggestions and feedback, and I was trying to ingest it all with Mark. I was like, should we do this? Should we not? And the reality is, sometimes there's a level of advice that becomes noise. And so seek the advice you need, but always be willing to sort of take what you want and leave what you don't, right? Because you don't need to take something that you don't think will work on your business and maybe your customers haven't told you about. So always be willing to sort of leave what you don't need at the door.
Yeah, I agree with that. You got to be careful, right? Like, I often talk about this thing called situational stage advice. Like, I never forget a mentor of mine. I used to, love Gary Vee, and he used to say, he responds to every single Instagram comment. And I said to a mentor of mine, I need to build a stronger relationship with our community at Foundr. We need to responding to everyone, thousands and thousands of comments every week on our Instagram. And he just laughed, and he's like, Nathan, the reason that Gary Vee has the time to do that is because he has $100 million a year company, and he has 500 plus employees. Like, it's not relevant to you. And I think it's so easy, to speak to somebody or see something online and then go, oh, that means that's what I have to do. And you like you said, you got to take what's relevant to you and discard the rest.
Completely, 100%. Love that example.
Yeah. Okay. So look, we have to work towards wrapping up. This has been awesome interview. You guys have been really candid and open around what it takes to build like a super fast growing company. You guys must be, one of the fastest growing brands in the UK, right? Like it's insane growth. I'm curious, if you could give your 25-year-old selves one piece of advice, what would it be?
You should set up SURI right now and do this before you have kids, and like just start sooner. Like I wish we'd had the sort of concept and wherewithal to do it. That would be my advice, probably. That being said, like going through the journey that we went from 25 to when we set up the business has actually probably been foundational. Truthfully, it's like, would I be the same person that I was like starting SURI now if I hadn't gone through like the ups and downs of my previous company? Probably not. So I guess
I'd totally agree with that. I would say, I mean, not to be cheesy, I'd say don't stop being curious. My younger self, I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was 10 years old. And I never really took that path. I worked at big corporate companies. I was worried I was getting too old to be an entrepreneur. I moved to a few other large companies. And then finally I applied to a lot of startups and they said, oh, you're overqualified and you're overpaid. They're right about the overpaid part, not the overqualified part. I can roll up my sleeves and do anything. And then I moved to a venture company where I got firsthand experience on companies that were not growing as well and trying to turn around. And I would say that path, looking back now, has been the perfect path for us to set up SURI, because I learned about companies that weren't doing well. I learned the product market fit wasn't good. I learned the fundamentals of like marketing and finance at a larger stage company, which now as we move bigger and we need we get bigger and need more processes, those skills really come into play. And so I would say chill out and be curious, continue to be curious, because like I had this like burning desire of like, why have I not done it now? When am I going to do it? We talked about the idea 8 years ago. What's going on? So I think things work out sometimes when you stick true to your values.
I agree. And I've got one last question for you both. What's one question that you wanted me to ask you that perhaps I haven't?
My question that I wanted you to ask me was like, what is the most important thing you would tell any founder about starting a business? And my answer would be enjoy the journey, because you are going to have downtimes that are just painful to get through, and you just got to get through them. And then you're going to have the most epic up times. And I was maybe superstitious. I just didn't want to celebrate the wins, even when they were small or big. And early on, Mark was like, we're never going to enjoy this journey if we aren't like absolutely celebrating at our hardest at any moment possible. And he's great at like bringing our team on having just an amazing culture. But that is so true. And we've done that. And I was like, you're right. I'm just going to sulk the whole way through and just be like really modest about it. So I would say like enjoying the journey. Any moment to celebrate is an epic moment to celebrate. Take it and celebrate even harder, because those downtimes are really hard for any founder, and there's a lot of mental sort of struggle that you go through, and it's important to have that balance and to get out of that. I mean, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I know that's a common theme that you that is shared on yours, and also the founder of Shopify, Tobias Lucas, says like his company has done so well, it's on a stock market, right? And he's well from any struggles now. But he says, I still get those low moments. He's like, I've just learned to minimize them to 5 minutes. And then I'm moving on to the next thing. So I think it never goes away as a founder. So you've just got to learn to celebrate the highs and pull yourself out of the low moments when they come.
And I'll tell you where that came from, because this is like, you're actually so right. It's so fundamental. In my last business, everything that I was built towards was like the exit. Right. And I was so focused on the exit, and it meant everything to me, and my identity and my ego and my value as a person was like, how much do I exit for? Like, can I achieve it, etc., to the detriment of the journey. And it's such a cliche. And like, I'd obviously heard many people be like, it's about the journey, it's not about the destination. And I was like, yeah, whatever. You can say that because you've already got your millions, whatever. But like at the end, when I exited my last company, I had like real burnout to the point of just like existential, like, what was this all for? Like, why have I done this? And it was in my lowest moment post exit that I was like, I will never do that again. Because if you just look at like the amount of time, like, we've been doing this now 3 years, I genuinely can say like, it's just been the best 3 years of my life. because I'm so much more present and just trying to enjoy the journey. And like, because of that, no matter what happens at like the end, if we have this incredible exit or if we don't, I can genuinely say there is not a single thing I would do differently in terms of how I've spent those 3 years. And if I can live my life for the rest of time, just being like enjoying each day, enjoying each week, obviously there's highs and lows, but like really just like there's nothing I'd rather be doing. And that for me is now success. And I think I'm so glad we get to share that together.
Yeah, that's a really amazing thing to share. So, and I agree. It's easy to forget though, right? It's easy to forget.
Easy.
It's not easy to remember. It's easy to forget because you're just caught up, right? It's like this crazy thing. But guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
This was really, really valuable for all of our listeners. And I look forward to continue to watch the journey from afar as you really scale this incredible brand.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so if you love this episode, make sure to check out my interview with Alex Hormozi on how he scales companies from 0 straight to $2 million a month in less than a year.
You were like, how have you achieved it? Like, there's 5 years of my life that disappeared. In fact, I lost all the money, which I talk about in the book. I had all the gyms, I did the turnarounds, and then I had $0 5 years later because of mistakes that I made. But the things that I was gaining was not the money, it was the skills, it was the character traits, and the beliefs.